Tansy, hello, and welcome back to the Diversity Disconnect podcast. I'm your host, Mallory Tomlinson. Over the past 6 episodes, we introduced you to the Diversity Disconnect research and the factors that contribute to employment success for underrepresented groups. You heard the real stories of rural British Columbians who are navigating the labor market as an Indigenous person or a person experiencing a disabling condition, their employers, and those who deliver supports to their communities. On behalf of the entire team, we hope you have enjoyed this series and have gained new understanding and insight into creating inclusive work environments. Joining me for a special bonus episode is half of the Diversity Disconnect research team. Please welcome Megan Boekhorst, Madeleine Warkentin, and Emily White.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
For 6 months, this team found themselves on the road quite frequently to visit the communities that participated in their research: Hope, Agassiz, Ashcroft, Merritt, and Princeton, British Columbia. This boots-on-the-ground outreach and research allowed them to better understand the unique needs and challenges of each municipality and really get to know some of the wonderful people who make each of these small towns a community. Today, they are here to share their tales from the road. You'll hear everything from fashion tips for research success to their encounters with inspirational people going above and beyond to the near-death experience the team had on day 1. Now let's get into it. So, before this project, how familiar were you all with these communities?
I didn't even know that Ashcroft was a place.
No, neither did I.
So, the only thing that I knew about Ashcroft was driving through it, that there used to be a racetrack.
Yes,
They had a racetrack?
They had a racetrack.
Yeah, they were one of the only ones in BC, and then that's what brought a lot of people
Yes.
there. And then when Mission got their speedway and on the island got their speedway, it brought a lot of people out of there.
Yeah,
They were also known for the railroad. Ashcroft railroad brought a lot of people, but then I remember them telling us something about the highway just diverted all those people off and stuff. And then Merritt was the town we stopped for gas on our way to Kelowna or Kamloops. Obviously, I had been working in Hope for 2 years prior to this project, and
we have a local in Agassiz.
Yep.
you lived in Agassiz, thankfully.
Yeah, and I knew Princeton sort of well from like basketball and other sports and stuff, but yeah.
My dad does an annual curling tournament in Princeton.
I had family that lived in Princeton when I was quite young, but about it.
That's all I knew.
Yeah, I had no context for Ashcroft whatsoever. It was like, what? Point to it on a map.
Is it on a map?
Is it on a map?
I don't think it is, honestly.
And then Princeton is a place I have driven through. There's a picture of me in my youth on a rock at a gas station in Princeton, cheeks full of gum. I did intend to recreate it, but I forgot. And then in terms of Merritt, a little bit, like, again, you would stop, drive through. I've stayed there overnight a couple of times. And my dad loves it because of the country culture, the murals and such.
Yeah, I knew it as like Cowboy Town.
Cowboy Town.
That smells like lumber.
That is very accurate.
Yeah.
I love lumber smell.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we really
love
didn't know
lumber.
much
Yeah, no.
other than Hope.
Yeah, like Agassiz Hope, that's my jurisdiction.
Hope
that's
was,
like
even for me, like Hope was, you drive through.
Yeah.
I'd never been in Hope.
And I didn't know Hope until I'd started working for Free Reign. Like Hope, if you live in Chilliwack, I love Hope now, do not get me wrong, but growing up in Chilliwack, Hope was a bit of a joke.
Oh, it's a joke in Agassiz too. It is what it is. Like, and I only know Hope because of living in Agassiz. Like, had I lived somewhere else, like, I'd be like, no.
Never heard of it.
Fell in love with a hopeless place.
I also know it for the little Rambo cutout where you can take your
Oh
pictures.
yeah, Rambo. Everybody knows Hope
But
for
like,
Rambo.
I only knew it for the little cutout thing by the visitor center. It would be like, there's Embo, there's Mambo.
The tunnels, the bridge, even those you didn't really associate with Hope. You associated with Rambo and cool tunnels. That then got destroyed by a flood and nobody remembers they exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and for some reason when I think of Hope, I just think of it being dark all the time just because of the way it's like situated. And like very back in time. That's always what we would say. Like even going into the school gym and they've got like the very retro Pepsi logo on their scoreboard. I'm like, oh, okay.
She's old.
Back into the 80s.
Yeah, you guys are back in time.
Right. So how easy was it to go into the communities that you didn't know, where no one knew you, and ask people to share their vulnerable stories? And where did you even start?
I for me personally, I felt it was both easy and difficult. It was easy because it was that sense of like nobody knows who we are. So it's like you just go in there and you don't know what you're going to encounter. But it was difficult too because it's like nobody knows who you are. So they're very hesitant.
The trust factor.
Yeah. And I mean, some people gave us trust right away, which was cool. Very, very nice. Yeah.
I was surprised by how many places we could walk into, tell them what we were doing, ask if they had time for an interview, and they agreed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was interesting for sure.
Going into it, early days, it was very much that sense of like wandering. We had a couple of like leads of places we could go to that would be like a good idea to check this place out. I think that a lot of the people we spoke to saw the value of our project and they were impressed that it was happening, or like that's
yeah, like in their community.
Well, and having worked in a rural community, you know, that's the thing is rural communities don't often get that focused attention. And we heard time and time again, you can't take urban solutions and just apply them to rural communities. And so for a lot of folks, when we came in and said, hey, we're specifically doing this research in rural communities, and by the way, we're from a rural community, that was really exciting because that doesn't happen often. There's not often that rural focus in employment support work, in, you know, that's the only area I know, but I'm sure rural communities they don't get infrastructure attention. They don't often get financial attention. They're lumped in with the big city centers, and the city center then gets to decide how things get distributed amongst their rural regions. And let's be honest, it's not often that fair.
Yeah. And then, sorry, I was just going to say, when it does come in, it's not appropriate because the people making the choices are like, we live in a city, that'll be good.
Well, even some of the service organizations that are supposed to make their way out to Agassiz and Hope,
they don't.
They don't.
We've seen it in our programming where, you know, we put in a proposal for a project. We don't get it because, it goes to a more urban center that says they will cover this massive region of people, but they can meet all their targets and numbers within the city.
Yeah, they don't even have to come.
They don't need to go to the rural regions to help. So what really is incentivizing them to come out to Agassiz and Hope and deliver services?
Yeah.
They get what they need in their own urban centers. So we have often noticed that, you know, the people making these decisions think it makes much more logical sense. It's simpler. There's less factors at play if we just, you know, kind of block out our province into these great big chunks. But they're very different needs. They're very different challenges.
They're missing a large.
You don't get those supports. I mean, and we were. I know for me, it was a bit more of a shock going into, in particular, Ashcroft and a little bit Merritt, because Hope is lucky in the sense that we have a large number of service providers who do work fairly well together. And we've got places to refer people, but Ashcroft has nothing. I'm sorry. Like when you look at it, it's not nearly enough. And that's when you really realize, one, how lucky we are in Hope because we are sort of close enough to a city center to give us services. And two, how important these services are in small communities.
Yeah. And that togetherness too, because even Merritt, they have quite a few service providers. Like we were shocked by the amount that they have, but they don't work together. And so it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we started with kind of our script. When we started doing outreach, we had just kind of, we were putting together our survey. It wasn't out yet. And so we were like, this is a thing that's coming. And you can find it here. And if you go to this website, you will find the update when it is live. Please do it when you see it.
Please.
That would really help us out. And then when the survey was out, it changed a little bit. And then we were like, you could do this here survey if you wanted to. It exists.
Help us.
And then it kind of, we had to workshop our approach because we would get like the blank stares and what do you want me to do with this? And so we were kind of like, it's a 10-minute online survey.
You don't even have to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. None of the questions are mandatory.
None of the questions are mandatory.
If you could just do a few of them.
Yeah.
Just a few of them, please. And so from there, we kind of fine-tuned it, and I think got to a place where like we had more answers to questions, and we had more of a sense of what we were going for. Because in the beginning as well, we were like, we'll be doing a focus group at some point. And those didn't pan out had we hoped. So then we were just pivoting to interviews. So it got to a place where we were like, if you have any time right now, we have all of our stuff right here, right now. We're here for you. If you've got 10 minutes, we'll work with that. So there was an evolution that took place. And
it was really cool to see, you went in there and you're like, even if you just have 10 minutes, but people often gave us more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Once you got into it, they were they were given.
People are usually cagey with their time when they don't understand what they're going to share, what they have to share, what you're going to share with them.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah. But once they realize that it's meaningful or they have something to give.
Yeah, and like we're not there to like attack them for things or whatever.
Or sell them something.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
they needed to get the vibes, and then they were like giving us half hour. So excellent. Yeah. Overall, it was just a process of figuring out what worked and following that.
And then by the end, we were rolling. We were walking into random places and seeing what happened.
This is who we are. This is what we do.
If you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah, basically.
So in episode 1, you shared the struggles that small town infrastructure can bring. Were there many other accessibility challenges you encountered in this work?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Should we tell them about the Bear Claw Lodge?
Yeah, and there's a couple other examples we could bring in too, but
I think
that was a notable one.
That was one that was like right off the bat, shocking.
And we tried so hard.
There was so much preparation put into that one specifically because we were
we had that. I had
unsure.
That feeling.
Yeah.
I just had that gut feeling.
Being a non-franchise hotel motel lodging, you don't know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. But that was the challenge, right?
You're going into a small town.
We're going into small towns to do this research. I was the one doing the logistics of the trips, and Ashcroft does not have a chain hotel. Mm-mm. We couldn't even stay in Ashcroft. Mm-mm. We ended up staying in Cache Creek, a 20-minute drive outside of Ashcroft.
Like that would have been the same had we had to travel to Agassiz. Like there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. Like
at least we could have stayed in Chilliwack. Like with accessible
but like it's still like a distance to
travel. So we had to stay outside of the town, and we found Bear Claw Lodge, which looked lovely compared to the other options. They didn't have many photos, so I remember before I booked, I called to book, and it said, one of my team does utilize a wheelchair. Is your space accessible? Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course it's accessible. I said great. So like no bathroom problems. Like she'll be able to fit in the bathroom. She'll be able to get into the doorways. Yeah. Then you guys did your first trip. No, it was the second trip to Ashcroft.
Because we did a solo. Because our first one was the three of us, like Megan, myself, and Madeleine, and then we went up just myself and Madeleine. And when we went up to Ashcroft, we're like, oh, let's just do a little jaunt over the Cache Creek and let's get some visuals on this and like I don't know, have a little chat.
I like to be prepared going into things, so it's just like let's get eyes on it, and we pull up. It's charming. And
they were lovely people.
Of course.
Lovely people. And the vibes of the
lodge.
Lobby. Is it a lobby?
It's a lobby.
It's a lobby. That was a lobby, yeah.
Yeah, the lobby was lovely and unique and kitschy, and I love a kitsch moment. But it's basically like a motel on the outside. There's rooms upstairs and then there's rooms that face outside. So to paint a picture, we get there and I noticed that there's quite a ledge to get into the rooms. It's like I don't know, inches or...
It was a foot. It was a foot or more.
Like picture a Subway sandwich.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There you
go. It was the full length of 12-inch Subway sandwich.
It was quite the gap.
It was a full sandwich curb. So I was just like, that's going to be like that's a thing. Is there a way around that? And so asking the people at the front desk, they were like, yeah, we have a ramp that is mobile, and we can put it up to the rooms. Any room you need, we can move the ramp. And so I was like, excellent, fabulous, great. I would like to get eyes on this ramp. And so we were just like, final thing we'll do is, they said it's around the back. So Emily and I go around the back, and I get eyes on it. It's a triangular ramp.
It's a sturdy little ramp.
Sturdy little ramp. That's like
basic little ramp.
set up against a
It
similar.
perfectly covered that 1 foot, that one Subway sandwich height.
Yes,
from floor
exactly.
to door.
Yeah, and like a nice metal ramp. It was like
Metal?
Yeah.
It was fancier than I was imagining.
it was quite the little number.
Looks good. Looks professional.
And existed.
Existed,
We saw it,
absolutely.
we got eyes on it, and we were like, okay, great.
Yeah, gave that the thumbs up.
Fabulous. That's going to be good.
Visually affirm
Yes.
ramp.
Yes.
There is one here.
Let's get back home.
Yeah.
And then even then, I still had a funny feeling. Even then, I called the hotel again just to confirm this ramp. And the person on the phone did seem very confused, but I had come to expect that with a lot of my phone calls I had been making over the course of this project. So I didn't think that much of it. But she did affirm there was a ramp. So I said, great, we're good to go. We'll see you in a week.
Excellent. How the tables turned.
My, how the turntable.
It was go time.
So we're in the lobby. We've grabbed the keys, and I turn and go, oh, the ramp. We need the ramp.
Well, you said, is she going to need anything to get in the room?
That's right.
Is what you said.
Is she gonna need anything
To get into the room. And the person behind the desk goes, yeah.
Nothing further. That was end of sentence.
And I'm like, okay. And I was like, well, I've seen the ramp, so I can just go get it.
Yeah, we've got it.
We were also very tired at that point. It was a long day driving. We had multitasked. We had done a lot of stops on the way. We
and had done outreach before we.
we had stopped in Ashcroft. We had talked to people. We were. I had class that night even.
Yeah.
Socially exhausted.
We needed to get in the rooms and just like not do
Decompress.
anything.
And so
We get to the door.
I'm like, there's that foot.
and like there was no way to like lift you up in the ways we had on some of the curbs and like
No, my anti-tipper prevents from getting that far up, and even if you did get that far up, it's like
You would have been like
standing straight
oh
up.
yeah
Vertical. Yeah, it
it's
wouldn't
vertical.
we really would have had to, both Emily and I, lift
hoist it and
each end.
Nightmare altogether.
Your least favorite experience, I'm sure.
Want that. I was like, I'll just,
well and then you're just stuck in the room.
yeah,
But even then, you were like, I'll just
get
eat
out.
myself into the
Just
room.
launch off into the
Anyway, so because before this, we were like, yeah, I know exactly where the lift is. Don't you even worry. Or it's not the lift, sorry. I know exactly where the ramp is. I got this. So we go to retrieve said ramp. Emily goes. And I remember it being a guy's situation. It's nailed to the
yeah, like that thing was bolted down.
bolted down.
That was not going anywhere.
It's not a movable ramp.
I tried to lift it a couple of times. Oh yeah, like doing the quiver, like oh, here we go.
Again, Emily is our strongest team member.
She's a beast. She is strong. She's got the muscles.
Our
She
muscle,
does
our
sports,
bodyguard.
guys.
We don't sport except for Emily.
That's so funny.
She's got boxing in her work calendar every day of the week.
Right. I mean, I don't go all the time, but I go
A lot.
every week.
You're
at
the
least twice.
strong one.
Yeah.
And you
yeah.
could not move
No, like that.
this ramp.
That
from-
thing was planted there. It was like in the concrete.
And it was to the kitchen door. Like it made sense why they bolted it to that door for dollies getting in the kitchen. It just was not a movable ramp.
I mean, I would, to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe at one point it was movable and then they realized we don't really use this anywhere else. So let's just
I'm
anchor
sure
that
if
down.
you're going in and out and the ramp slightly moves, that's probably annoying.
Anywho, it was time for a big pivot. We had to get you in the room. There was no other option.
Well, so I was like, I'll just get out of my chair. It's fine. You can carry the chair in after me. And Emily said,
No.
my watch.
No.
And she's like,
She just takes off.
I saw some pallets.
Well, there was like a dumpster.
Quote from Emily, thank God there was some garbage out there.
Well, yeah, let's just say I don't think the garbage truck had come in a while. There were some pallets from who knows what that were a little dilapidated.
They weren't the strongest.
No, and some pieces of, I can't even call them planks of wood. They were more just like,
I swear it was thinner than plywood.
oh, it was. That thing wiggled in the wind.
It was a wobbler.
Sponsored by IKEA.
Yeah. Anywho,
Sponsors.
that was the pivot.
That was the pivot.
That was a let's pick her up. That's
Emily
the
built our
pallet,
own ramp.
not yes.
Emily comes walking back from the garbage with this giant pallet and
Yeah.
sheets of
Yeah.
thin wood in her
Yeah.
hands, and was like, "We're gonna build you a
No,
ramp."
it wasn't. There was like one. There was step one, which was the pallet. It was the right height. It was the right height. It lined up.
and it supported.
It supported weight, but there was some gaps. And so like my front tires, I was like, those might fall through but it's going to be fine. I said,
no, because there were also some nails in that plywood. We
Yes.
were worried about your tires.
yeah. But I said, you know what? It's fine. And Emily said, no.
Once again,
There was,
no.
There were thin strips of wood.
Yeah, like I had eyes on those.
So I'll just give me a minute. I'm going to be back.
Walk off into the sunset, come back with the wood.
Beautifully arranges them, perfectly fits them into these gaps.
Oh yeah, I did have to do some like curb stomping.
You
on
were
them.
curb
Yeah,
stomping
you roamed them.
the
Yeah.
pieces of wood.
Yeah,
Again, Emily is the muscles.
yeah.
Your trade.
Roadside carpentry.
I'm a woman in STEM.
DIY accessibility on the go.
Yeah, yeah.
That was so funny. Yeah, so curb stomped some sheets of wood, and beautifully arranged them and to fill the gaps and cover all the sharp bits. And she was like, "Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for this?" And I was like, "Ready as I'll ever be." And because it's a square, right? And so I'm a little bit concerned about like if I overdo it, I'm gonna fall right off the other end because you have to go straight up and then pivot into the room. So I'm a little bit concerned about like I'm just gonna shoot right off the end there.
Right, because another detail is that like it wasn't just like the gap and then the parking lot. It was the gap into the room, a very small like sidewalk,
Skinny
then a
sidewalk.
gap into the parking lot. So there was like a lot of hazards.
Hazards.
I remember often standing at the end of the pallet to get you out to just make sure if you were going to run into anything, it was going to be me.
Yeah.
So we didn't lose Lenny at the end of this call. That she came
Or
home
cause
safe.
any damage to any of the cars in the parking lot.
Put anybody else in danger here. So it was there was finessing to get in. And I will tell you, I broke it a little bit more every time I used it.
We were on borrowed time.
The ramp, not your chair, not
yes,
you.
yeah.
No, the chair's fine.
Cheers, great.
But however, had it did break, there was another pallet.
We had backup plans of more garbage.
Backup pallet.
Yeah.
However, I made sure the materials were there.
Yeah, exactly.
Ready to go. Yeah, so there were some cracking sounds.
And if you would like to check out Emily's incredible DIY pallet ramp, go into the show notes. There might be a picture or two for you to see.
I feel like it's also just like a good example of like how adaptable and like creative folks can be when you give them that chance to be. Because like if it was another work situation, I'd be like, maybe, but I wouldn't say anything because I'd be like, they're not gonna like that.
You're like, this guy's down for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I think this is the right room for this suggestion.
Read the room situation.
Yeah, right.
Like, yeah, we can do that here.
But it's like, I don't know. I feel like I just grew up with that mindset of like, you just make it work.
What I loved though was seeing the other hotel guests like walking down the sidewalk and then just stop and furl their brows at this random pallet and sheets of wood
And that
just
one-
in the middle of the sidewalk.
The one housekeeper in the morning. Whips.
But yeah, this one woman just is looking at it. I was like, we got a person who uses a wheelchair in that room right now. And she was like, oh. But it was that moment for her as well of like, again, never would have crossed her mind. Wasn't even a thought. It was just garbage is in my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like even if it was somebody who like used a walker or just had limited mobility, like,
Oh,
then
no
what?
person with bad needs was getting into a single one of those rooms.
So anyhow, that was fun, and I'm glad you guys appreciated it.
You lifted from your knees. You really did.
I lifted from my heart.
Was there another story?
No hesitation. Just from my heart.
From my heart. Yeah.
For you.
It's for you, buddy.
Was it a district or municipality building that you went in and Lenny couldn't go in?
Oh,
You had to
yeah.
wait outside
Yes.
Yeah, this was another example. This one was,
That ramp looked deadly.
it was huge.
huge.
Steep.
Yeah. Talk about like rusty nails.
Oh yeah, like there were
Exposed.
pokies
So
and
many pieces of metal.
yeah. And so like I don't know, do you want to just take it away?
Well, yeah. So it's an obvious ramp. Like it makes a statement.
Oh, yeah.
And
Can't miss it,
so
ramp.
I knew that was there. However, trying to find like where the front door is, like that's not the main entrance. So the main entrance is not accessible. So I had to have my buddy Emily here go in the main entrance and like alert the powers that be that there's somebody who requires entrance.
Because your door with the ramp didn't even have a door handle.
Well, yeah, that was the problem because we got up there and then realized we couldn't even get in. And so then I remember knocking and stuff, waited for a bit, nobody came. So I was like, are you okay if I leave you here? I'm going to dart down and then figure that out.
The main entrance to this building, facing the building, middle of the building. And you walk up some stairs, and to the right is like the municipal offices. And to the left is this long hallway to the door that the ramp opens up to if there was a door handle.
The door is just in the oubliette.
And there's really no one else down. Like there were a couple other doors down this hall, but I saw no human beings.
Yeah, like it was pretty quiet.
It doesn't matter how. And there's a door to get into the office for the municipal office. So
Yeah, so
if
it's
that door's closed, it does not matter how loud you pound on that door.
Yeah.
We're not getting in.
What's the point of having an accessible entrance or an accessible, like,
exactly.
if no one can enter?
Well, because the idea is that a person who uses a wheelchair or any mobility aid has a keeper with them at all times.
Well, because like had I not been there, there was no way Lenny was getting up there. And then had you gone up there, getting down would have been scary. Like scary.
It's steep.
Yeah.
And it shot you out into the street.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right directly into the street.
Yeah.
Not that it's the most busy street, but it is
Same deal.
It's a street.
But even like, no, that's the thing with not busy streets is you pay less attention as a driver.
Yeah.
If somebody's all of a sudden shooting out from the side of a building on wheels, you're not processing.
Yeah.
It was a dangerous setup.
A wheelchair user just hit my car.
Yeah. They hit your car. You didn't hit them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I just saw Lightning McQueen.
Speed.
I heard a muffled ka-chow. Then there's some thuds. I don't know. They might be under my car right now.
I didn't see the exit.
That might be my muffler, though.
and this is why we wanted to be face down in the river sometimes.
Yeah. If you don't make it funny, then
But
what can you do?
Yeah, there's an expectation that I will always have someone with me, and it's the same with like. And to call back to this weekend, like in Victoria, the ferries are accessible and lovely, and you can. They have a plan to get you elevator access. However, you're only permitted to have that access on the passenger side.
Yeah, and like certain boats are better.
Certain boats are better, but the standard is that the expectation is that
You're not
the
the
wheelchair
driver.
user will always be the passenger and have an able-bodied helpmate.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, as somebody who's like really working towards,
You're getting your license to
yeah.
be independent. You have your own car.
You have a car.
I own
That is your car.
That is my, it was my car.
You are the
was your car.
driver.
Yeah.
So I'm working towards being able to have that freedom to go places by myself, but then to be like, what do I do if I'm literally the driver? I don't have another option. I've come here alone. And I think that is a moment where somebody could stop and like consider. I don't think people expect me to be alone in public. It's like, where are your parents, young lady?
And everybody loves to have to be babysat by their parents as an adult.
Right.
Right. It's not the vibe. So, but yeah, it's happened often. There's an expectation that I am not to be left alone, which I mean, but that's a personality issue. It's not anything to do with the wheeling chair.
But it does often feel like we did the accessibility thing. Check. It's done. It's not does this actually function? Does this accessibility modification ramp actually work for people?
Yeah.
And is it a continuation like we did it 50 years ago? Is that a continuation? Does it still work today? Are we modifying it?
Have we changed the building in other ways?
Yeah.
Is there someone that's monitoring that? Is there...
But even, I mean, I'm thinking of the community center in that one really small community as well, that they at one point did have the ramp because it's legally a necessity. But was it vandalized? Did it break? Like, what happened to it?
Right. Okay. So yeah, at the recreation center or like community center in that community, we couldn't even get in because what happened was they put it in the old school building, and then because it hadn't transferred over into their possession yet, it was still the school district's building. They couldn't make modifications to the building. So the only ramps that were available led into completely different areas of that center. So like the one ramp led into the gym, like the community gym, which didn't really lead anywhere else. So we would have been just stuck in the gym, or one that led into the daycare preschool thing. Otherwise, we could not get in. We circled that building. Somebody came out and was like, "Do you need help?" I was like, yeah,
we do.
How do we get in?
Yeah, and like it was like only a couple steps, but that's a lot. Like, you need just something to put there. To
a couple steps is it doesn't matter if there's 2 or 20.
No, exactly. And like I think some people are like, "Oh, well, that's no biggie." It's like, but it is.
Well, yeah, it's no biggie for me. And like I was wearing my climbing pants, but I was also having tummy troubles. So like,
well, you shouldn't have to climb though. Like you shouldn't have to.
Right. So yeah, just because I can doesn't mean I should have to.
And just because you can doesn't mean that someone else that needs to be able to can.
And it doesn't mean that they're any less valuable or that they need to get into the building any less.
And once again, this was this community's community services center.
Yeah, like that's like the hub.
It is who is supposed to be providing supports to the community's most vulnerable.
Yeah. And I mean, like the person that was like running the building, like understood and felt for us and was like being like, hey, like we are working on it. It's just, again, that bureaucracy hoop jumping of like, we can't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So those were definitely some accessibility challenges.
There were a few.
Just
a handful.
Just a couple.
We make it work.
So during the early stages of relationship building, what brought you success? What helped create meaningful relationships with these communities in such a short period of time?
Passion. I think going into these communities, like we look different. I'm visibly disabled. And so I'm used to like people noticing me and it's hard.
She's also beautiful.
Stunning even. Yeah.
They get what they get.
They get what they get. And I came to a point in my life many moons ago where I was like, well, I can't actually like hide like I want to. It's not an option for me. So I'm going to make my look exciting and a little bit different because I like some pizzazz. And so I've always, and like dressing up is a way for me to like, it's my armor against my fear and anxiety. And it's always been that way for me. So I overcompensate in my look for the failings I feel in my soul. Sorry guys, I took it there.
We get dark. But we get up again.
Word. So yeah, I have a bit of a unique look. And I like accessories. And so to pair up with Emily, who has an accessory for every moment.
The McDonald's outfit was like life for me. The day of the tour, and you showed up in your McDonald's outfit, I was like, slay.
It's the Cars outfit I like with the little hot rods and the hair.
It's really good. And there's the fishing outfit, Costco hot dog.
The Costco hot dog.
So, you know, in again, these small rural communities where people will often be wearing their overalls and their work pants, and you see these two
camo and just
like we're hard to miss.
They stood out.
Yeah, even on a day where I'm like, I'm pretty casual today and I'm in a hot pink t-shirt, like, you know, like you don't see
Their
that.
casual is not my casual.
No. I don't know. And like my version of that is very similar to Lenny, where it's like I've always felt just like out of place and like a little weird. And so for me, it's like, well, I have nothing else to lose at this point. Like I'm already at like the bottom here. Like the bar is set low. So like if I can like be comfortable and weird and that helps somebody else feel like they can also be weird or comfortable, then like my job here is done. So I feel like that's kind of like where I'm coming from with it. And I think that really helped with our outreach of building connections, because it's like, oh, okay, like these are real people. These are like silly billies out there. And like,
well, because we're sending out, like we did like 2 days of cold calling to no avail, and emailing and stuff. And we say like, oh, we're researchers. We're working on this Diversity Disconnect project. You may be interested. Here's why you may be interested. And so from like your average business owner, employee, it's like, no, that's all official. None of that. Thank you. Don't want lab coats showing up. But, you know, we go in person and we're like, we're researchers, research assistants. We're working on this project. And I think there's also a connection of like, I mean, for me, again, visibly disabled, I can't make that part go away. So they see I'm working, see me saying we're working on a project improving employment outcomes for people with disabilities or disabling conditions, as well as Indigenous folks. And there's often a look like there was like okay, right. So now I have a responsibility because you here are a wheelchair kid telling me that you're doing this project to help other wheelchair kids. So now I'm listening and I'm a little bit invested because I feel as though you're watching me now, which is true. I'm observing.
I wish it didn't take that.
Yeah. There's a sense of accountability there that they feel existing when I'm just...
When you're just present.
When I'm just a wheelchair kid standing in front of an employer.
Asking them
to hire me or people like me.
And then the weirdo hovering behind you. Guys.
This is my bodyguard.
Literally.
This is the muscle.
Yeah.
So I think like coming to it with like a sense of like we are very in touch with our whimsy.
But you're really real.
Yeah.
You gave it realness and took away like the sterility of the research and the lab coat thought of what research looks like.
You certainly were not boring researchers.
No,
and I think that really does help. Like, I think people need to like get in tune with that. Like, we're not saying you need to put Hot Wheels in your hair or like, I don't know. I don't even know. What are other, any other host of examples that are crazy. You don't need to be wearing 3-4-inch platform heels to a conference. However,
you can if you wanna.
You can
absolutely.
if you want to. It's a sleigh.
But I also think like having again taken more of an observation role with the work you guys were doing was it when you were more authentic to yourselves. Like, could you imagine how much more uncomfortable you would have been if you were in some stiffy beige suits going door to door?
No, like horrible.
Or if Megan, if we gave you some sort of uniform or work attire that you had to wear when you went out into the communities,
you wouldn't feel. What are the other factors that I want to throw in here? You wouldn't feel authentic. You wouldn't be nearly as motivated to do it because you wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, you wouldn't appear authentic. Like you wouldn't go in being you. The people wouldn't feel that.
And nobody would have remembered you.
No, exactly. They just,
Whereas Canada Post and Ashcroft knew you were coming before you'd ever step foot in their doors.
Yeah, and they saw us from down the street and we're like, we saw you guys. We were hoping you'd come in and say hi.
Yeah. So I think it was just like there's a visual element to it right off the bat. And then there's an opportunity to kind of be put at ease.
Yeah, and it almost starts the conversation too sometimes of like, hey, I like your whatever.
I like your hair.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank you. It's just because I didn't wash my hair, guys.
Spoiler alert.
Keeping it real.
But that has been a huge success, even in just like when I was working with clients, is just giving that compliment starts the human interaction and lowers some walls a little bit.
And the lack of judgment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Seeing other humans be human. Seeing that other people can be real, that they're not going to be stiff and rigid. Puts you on an even.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like even one employer we had a conversation with, like we sparked it by talking about the A&W hash browns because he had his little breakfast sandwich and we're like, oh, those rock, like we love those.
You know what I like to do is I like to put my hash browns in my sandwich.
And we're like, no way. You're blowing our mind.
Hold on. You have been holding on to this secret and not sharing it
Hash
with me.
browns on any sort of like breakfast sandwich are
the best. And like the A&W hash browns, very good.
so good.
Potatoes, man. Potatoes.
Yeah.
Potato. I would like to say that I did get to see one of those meaningful relationships kind of come to fruition at the conference, and see the excitement in your guys' face and the service provider's face, and see how much that meant to all of you in that little meaningful reunion.
That filled me with so much joy. Like seriously,
the glee.
So for context, when we did go to Victoria last week and we were about to present, it was an industry conference. It was a lot of people in our industry. And part of our research was talking to service providers and talking to people who are doing the same work that Free Reign and Life Strategies are doing. So it was a pleasant surprise that some of our research participants were at the conference itself.
Yeah, and like she just happened to be sitting at a table with us in a totally unrelated presentation.
Didn't know who she was.
She was wearing a mask.
Yeah, we didn't even recognize her right away. And then she said her name when we were all like introducing ourselves. And I was like,
no way.
Like I looked at Lenny and I was like, did you clock that too? And
It's
then
a name I had heard from you both time and time again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was so cool because she really made an impact on us, like a lot. Like that one was
she had an amazing like soul and spirit.
Like such a beautiful person.
I think about her on the daily. Not to be that guy. But the first thing that I noticed was like, that's a fabulous skirt.
Yeah, right.
She was in the elevator with us that morning, and she was in front of me, and I was like, I love that skirt.
The material,
like fabulous.
Girl, get it, girly.
It was great,
satiny,
fabulous,
gorgeous.
But yeah, it felt really good. Sorry, not to like. It felt really good to like have that moment to like really share our appreciation because with a lot of folks we didn't get that in the moment, like to just be like, thank you so much, like you are an incredible person. And so like it just felt so good to like finally say that because we seriously talk about her all the time.
I think part of it too is like we're in like that social mode. We're kind of like we're here to do a day of interviewing, and so we have to, like, we're there for them in the moment, and we are hearing them, and there's a dialogue there and a conversation. But I think the impact of what they've shared with us takes some time. Like we're there and we're making sure we're sticking with our protocols and we're saying the things we need to say, and we get through that. But then like you're in bed that night and it's like, that was
deep.
Yeah.
Wild.
Oh yeah.
I think it's one of the challenges of a researcher of maintaining or removing your bias, right? You can't get into those moments with them. You have to stay detached. So it's not until later that it really sinks in with you.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, that was crazy. That was one of the interviews that was just
the most impactful.
And so to see her there in this moment, that was the kind of the culmination of all of it for us.
Oh yeah.
It's like, we're about to do this like big scary thing in the morning.
Yeah. And then like she was able to come watch. She sat like right up front and was like looking at us the whole time and like just being.
You quoted her.
Yeah.
No, of course.
She shed
like
tears.
Yeah.
And so when I'm seeing her shed tears, I'm like, oh God, guys, I'm gonna have a meltdown. But yeah, it was the impact, and she's just so lovely and I think really understood where we were coming from. And so, yeah, it's people like that are just amazing. And her being there and being at that table when she was.
It was such a meant to be moment of like, you did this and like, you're on the right track. Like this is what shows that. And I think it extends to a lot of the participants too. Like it's not just her who had an impact on us. It was every single one. Like there's a piece from every single person that we appreciate so much. And like, I can't say it enough. Like we carry these people with us, and I don't know. I hope they know that. And I hope they
you're
know
all
they're
having a really good day.
Yeah, me too. Every day.
Yeah.
So as you transitioned from outreach to data collection, what challenges did you encounter?
We were dealing with, because the longest portion of our project was outreach. And so it was like spanning quite a period of time by the time we could finally like go in and analyze all of this data that we had collected. And so there was stuff from like early days when we were still getting our research legs and like figuring it out. And when we didn't fully have the vision or where it was all going to go, we were just kind of two guys fighting for our lives and like, no. Anyway, we had no context for any of it. So we were building the context as we went. And so being at the end of that and seeing like, oh, remember like in the beginning how like scared we were and like we were like kind of being a little bit more cautious and reserved maybe. And so seeing like there were like some kinks that had to be worked out. And so going back in our, like, we're well-versed now, going back and seeing like, oh, I wish you had me. I wish you had like explored that a little bit deeper or like gone into a couple more factors surrounding this. Like it maybe could have been even that much more rich of an interview.
Yeah. I don't know that I can add a whole lot more to that. Like, I feel like that covers kind of the biggest like struggle we had kind of with that transition. And I think too, just like getting people to like commit to the idea of doing it and like going through with that. Cause like, it's easy enough for us to like, be like, hey, we're here. Like, remember us, we came back. We're here to chat with you again. And then actually getting them to like say like, cool, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, gathering consent forms is a challenge. And it's kind of that like, please, we need you to, like, you were so gung-ho and like ready, but we just need you to sign this so that we can like use.
Yeah, and like those are scary consent forms if you're not sure what they even mean and like what they entail. And so I think that was a bit of a barrier at times because like this, like even though we were like very friendly, tried to make it as approachable as possible. There were still people that like we would be chatting with them and they're still just hesitant. They're like, am I like signing my life away? And it's like, no, I promise it's okay. Like it looks scary. Yeah. This is what it actually means. And
the
like,
trust factor is, even though they may trust you, the process is still scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think those are main challenges because we had to like wrap up those loose ends. But yeah.
As part of the data collection phase of the project, the research team packed their bags and completed a week-long road trip through Merritt and Princeton. Joining them on this leg of the journey and in studio with us now is Desiree Carlson. Hi, Desiree.
Hey, thank you for inviting me over. I'm so happy to be back with you guys.
We're excited.
Maybe another road trip might be nice.
Getting that itch. It is winter, but
I know, not a good time for road trips.
So after all the road tripping you guys did, what was the highlight of the road trip for you guys?
My highlight was to shift seats. So I really loved that, well, we were all like working together, but separately in a way, like doing the interviews in different spots. We always had a chance to shift partners. So so now you'll go with Emily. No, now, you know, we were always changing. And then that allowed us to have, well, I value a lot that time spent one-on-one and beyond the task of doing the interviews. So I really enjoyed those times we were driving and with each one of you.
I was going to say, I got to be in the car with you and chat. There was construction. So we had moments to chat. And that was like my first time doing interviews. So to like chat with you and get feedback, because I like respect you as a professional. And so getting to kind of have that feedback, and you were like, you seem nervous. What's that about? And then that really,
the counselor in me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it was great. And kind of, I was able to regroup and I think got some valuable input, and that was really lovely. And yeah, getting to hang out with everybody. We had a lovely dinner all together and talked about like our passions and such.
Yeah, I learned that Emily is a fashionist.
Maybe not right now, but
Hey,
Like could be.
you're vibing.
yeah, I'm fine
Yeah,
today.
so
We're chilling.
that, I think that was pretty neat. Like it's all the relationships that we were able to build, the friendships even.
The connections that kind of lead to that collaboration piece that we've been
Exactly.
talking about so much.
And that's why the research flowed so well, because there was that piece and there was space and time, and that road trip was one of the pieces that allowed for that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just a really good way to like get us all connected in such a better way than just like through the screen. Cause like we already connected through the screen, but I think having those moments of like, I don't know, even just being at like Kakuli cafe or whatever, like just having snacks and stuff, like it's just, it's fun.
Connecting over food always helps. Food.
Food, we love it.
Food is good.
Were there any surprises from the data collection phase? Any moments in data collection that really stood out to you?
What was surprising was something that might seem contradictory, that people were at the same time available and not available. So if when we got into, well, I got to go to 3 places, and in the places that we were, we had to ask for people in their workplaces for interviews. Well, at least that was my role. And people weren't ready, or they were busy, and we didn't have a lot of time. So we needed to, get some of their time in any format that they could give it. So it couldn't be so formal. They didn't have maybe a space. So some of them were just recordings with with my phone, and they had I have 10 minutes, so I had to choose those questions. And when I did that, and I when I accommodated, then they would share, and great stories could come out of there. There was even one that was like very longer than I thought, but it came from a very casual encounter. When I first said, do you have time for an interview? And I went through all the hoops and things that they had to go through. No, I don't have time for that. When I just said, no, whatever you can share, I just have to record it. And you just have to allow me to record it, signing this. Oh, okay, I have 5 minutes, I have 10. And then it would become available. So that was surprising in the way that it opened my eyes to, if you maybe just shift something, then
And you accommodate them.
then it becomes easier.
Yeah. My thoughts are similar. I don't know if you wanted to like,
Well, no, just building off of that, like it's interesting in terms of, I've said this a lot of times, but being asked by an employer what access needs are. And so going into them and an interview and being like, all I need is to just record you. Like, it's fine. Just sign this and I'll record you. It doesn't really matter. Like, we're really unstructured. Anything you can give is great. Accommodating them. And they're like, okay, well now yeah, sure, I can do that. So like that's accommodation. And it's like that right there is what we're after. More of that.
101. Just do that with the rest.
yeah.
Just ask someone, what do you need? Well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What would make this easier?
Like make it easy.
Yeah. And I feel like for a lot of people too, it was really interesting to see that like some people were quite closed off until we found that like way to get in with them, kind of like find that way for them to be like, oh, this is okay then. And then they would just open up a world of thoughts and ideas and things that were like way deeper than you would ever anticipate. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I surprised myself, like having no experience with interviewing or really talking to people I don't know. And so kind of starting out in the like uncomfortable, like I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, but being able to find that like one thing that kind of gets them on to something, and then they follow the thread, and then we can be like, we're doing it, it's happening. You and me together, like we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's
happening, the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it was like kind of simple things that would take us from like the blank stare to a really impactful interviews.
Connection.
Yeah, connection.
There it is.
I was really impressed by Princeton a lot, and in various ways, but one of them was the museum. They have a local museum, and we were trying to get interviews. So we just asked the manager there or the person in charge of the museum, and yeah, he had some time, and we just sat there in the museum, and he started not only answering those questions, but he gave like an hour and a half interview. And it went beyond, because of course he shared about his context and the museum and how he came to work there. And then he started giving some information about the history of the town and why they were as they were. And speaking about zooming in and zooming out, that was a very beautiful moment of zooming in and zooming out, where I was getting his experience answering those questions for the interview, but then I was getting so much context about the history of the town and the flood and how they came back and restored everything, and what makes them like a special town, and why did they invest so much in the museum. And I learned about historical characters. And so it was very interesting.
And that helps to give you some relational aspect into what you may find in the data or the people, or like the resources that you may or may not find. Like that is so helpful. Finding
Context, right?
Yeah.
It gives you so much context.
One person may be pivotal to the whole community's, like, your outlook on it, or
it's like a portal. Like he opened a portal to the community, and it did bring some insight about who to connect with. He gave me information about a very important leader that had to do with the development of the town, that knew other people. So I think he was pivotal, but it was also very circumstantial, and it wasn't planned.
Yeah, I think on that same note of like Princeton, the interesting thing was like, I feel like when we were there, it felt very welcoming no matter where we went. Like it wasn't like oh shoot, we just exhausted this option, now we're back to square one of just knocking on doors again, hoping for something else. It was like, no, like I feel hopeful that the next place I go into, somebody's going to at least like welcome us and like share something, right? Even if it's not like for the project, it's still like, here's my town, here's me, here's whatever.
I would say that was kind of surprising, because by the time we'd gotten to Princeton for outreach, like in that way, we had a lot of outreach experience, and we'd kind of gotten used to the like never knowing what the next place was going to offer. Like it was good if we were going to be downtrodden. But in Princeton, there was a sense of like, we're getting kind of past where we need to be, and passed along. Yeah, I think we spoke to it in a separate episode about like feeling like we were being like escorted safely to our next location, rather than like on our own.
Yeah, because it was like in other communities, we'd like hit one person or one business or something that would like give us their time and their participation. And then as soon as we left, we're like, okay, now what? Like, because then it's just, like, I don't know. It just felt very like,
you're back out on the street. Like, okay, where do we go now?
Yeah. Like it was very just segmented of like, okay, here's this. Yeah. Like here's this box of a person. Now we're just roaming and aimlessly until we find the next pocket. Whereas Princeton was like very interconnected, very, I don't know. Very,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Merritt, Ashcroft, Princeton, Agassiz, and Hope. These are 5 very unique communities, each with their own challenges and needs. Was there anything you found that the 5 communities all shared?
I saw a sense of grounding and pride. I in all of the places we were, no matter how similar or different their challenges were, I saw people who were proud of living where they lived, people who didn't want to leave their places. Yeah. And that's interesting to me as an immigrant, as I decided to leave my hometown. So finding that sense of grounding, this is where I want to be, and undoubtedly declaring it in a way, I think that's what I see in common.
What is the lasting impact or the legacy that you hope this project creates?
I really hope it brings energy. I truly desire for this to mobilize, somehow catalyze movement.
I like mic drop. You're done. Love it.
That's awesome. Excellent.
Free Rein Associates would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded shared territory of the Chawathal people of the Tayat tribe, on which we are learning, working, and organizing daily. It's important for us to acknowledge the land, not only because it's an intentional and mindful step towards truth and reconciliation, but because it is easier to deny Indigenous people their rights if we historicize their struggles and simply pretend they don't exist. We commit ourselves to the struggle against the systems of oppression that have dispossessed Indigenous people of their lands and denied their rights to self-determination, work that is essential to human rights work across the world.
Diversity Disconnect is funded by the Government of Canada. To learn more about the research, visit freereinassociates.ca/diversity-disconnect or check out the links in our show notes. The Diversity Disconnect podcast is hosted by Mallory Tomlinson and produced by Megan Boekhorst. Our audio engineer is Tim McAlpine. Guests include Desiree Carlson, Megan Boekhorst, Madeleine Warkentin, and Emily White. The Diversity Disconnect podcast was developed by Free Rein Associates and Life Strategies.